Well, there's been some rumblings, everybody. There's been some rumblings about a sequel to the sequel of The Last of Us. Have you guys heard about this? You guys seen this? You guys heard about this?
Yeah.
You heard about this? Well, it does. So it turns out that they might be doing it.
Wow.
Welcome to Press Start.
Really? So I honestly don't know why they keep doing this to themselves. I think Neil Druckmann and Haley Gross are in sort of a bubble, so they just assume everybody is as in love with the franchise and the direction it's taken as they are. I really like The Last of Us Part 2. I'm saying this. Vil, are you okay? What just happened?
Sneeze.
Did you guys hear that?
Yeah,
He doesn't like The Last of Us 2.
He hates it.
He like
See, it divided. The Last of Us divides the household.
Even my lizard
household
is freaking out. Dude, chill out. Anyway, I think it makes sense for The Last of Us to be put on ice for a hot minute, but I'm not Sony, and apparently I don't, they like money. So they're allegedly remaking the entire original game from the same tool set as they used for The Last of Us Part 2, probably upgraded some in preparation for the PS5, getting that all rocking and rolling. Which, let's be real, we're all gonna buy it anyways. You got me. Hook, line, and sinker.
They already remastered it for PS4 7 years ago. I don't want it. I don't want it.
Is this what people do?
I don't want it. I'm gonna make my own video game.
Yeah, it'll be just as good.
Yeah, in which case, do it.
But after all of that, Neil Druckmann has come out and said, quote, when asked about a sequel to The Last of Us Part 2, quote, "I don't know how much I want to reveal," co-writer Haley Gross, "and I did write an outline for a story that we're not making, but I hope one day that it can see the light of day, that explores a little bit of what happens after The Last of Us Part 2. We'll see. We'll see." I mean, I'm shocked that this is news. Like, everybody knows that the writers have an idea of what happens after the story. Like, I think the only way for this to go is like to have Ellie weirdly team up with Abby, and then they go, Ellie finds another doctor that can help make a vaccine. They develop it. The last shot in the game is Ellie as life fades from her eyes. And then after that, it goes black, implying heavily that the vaccine was made and humanity was saved. But they won't actually show that. They'll leave that up to your imagination, because that's how they work.
Yeah, storytelling, where they don't finish telling the story.
Yeah, isn't that a fun trend that we're going into?
It's because it's art. Oh, it's up to you what the ending is. No, it's not. You're writing it.
Well, sometimes it's about making you, like, if they just show you what happens, then you don't process it as much. For instance, I did a play called A Bright New Boise, fantastically well written by a guy named Sam Hunter, actually won the MacArthur Genius Grant at like age 27. Brilliant writer. He put this story together about this guy who was a member of a crazy cult who kept thinking that Jesus was going to come back at any second. Sorry, Cammy, this is something that happens in the US all the time. And his son and his life collapses. His son overdoses on drugs because he's trying to commit suicide and he wants out of this world. This is after a whole story that lasts 2 hours of him trying to rekindle this relationship with his son after disappearing for like 20 years. And so when his kid tries to commit suicide, he's left standing in this parking lot, and it reflects back to the beginning of the story when, right as this man's life was falling apart before, he kept saying now, trying to summon on the end of the world, being like, now, like, world end, collapse, Jesus, come back, kill everybody, now. And at the very end of the story, as his life's falling apart again, he starts yelling, now, and then the lights go black, and that's the end of the story. You know how that story ended. You know that Jesus didn't come back and open up a can of whoop ass. You know he stayed in that parking lot screaming now, probably for hours, trying to escape his problems. And the reality of his situation and his actions. But by not showing that, not making it clear what happened or that nothing happened, it made you reflect on it even more, in my opinion, than if they had just shown like him collapse, give up, and be like, oh, my life, I destroyed everybody around. Like, everybody knows that that's true. No need to hammer it home by explaining it through words. What do you think of that?
Fucking hell.
I think that it's different for a 2-hour play than it is for a 40-hour, aka 80-hour story that's being told over 100, let's say 110 hours over 3 games. Please just give, I know your art, I know you're good writers, give them some form of closure. Some form.
Just don't make the game.
Don't make
Come
the
on.
game. Make a spin-off of Crash Bandicoot called Crash Bandicoot Jump. And it's like an mobile
Crush
app.
Brandy's cooch.
Nice.
It's Smash.
Didn't
Wait,
even
is it
like
Smash Brandy's Cooch or is it Crush Brandy's Cooch?
I think it's Crush Brandy's cooch.
What a gross way to put it. I'm gonna crush it. I'm gonna crush it.
I'm gonna crush your cooch. All told, I just like they keep doing this where they just keep milking these franchises, trying to make as much money as they possibly can. And I get it. If the story makes sense and it follows through, that's great. But I think The Last of Us Part 2 was so emotionally exhausting, at least for me. I need a little bit of time. Like, and it sounds like we're going to get it. They're not making this game right now. I mean, part of the issue is Neil Druckmann has lied so many times about what they're actually doing and when they're doing it. And even when they announce what they're doing and he tells people we're not doing this, it ends up they are. So for instance, he said from the very beginning of the production of The Last of Us, the original game, that you would not play as Ellie. You were only playing as Joel throughout the entire game. Not true at all. Halfway through, you play as Ellie. And I think it was good that they said that because the game was much better when that was a surprise. But he has a history of lying about what they're working on, what they're not working on, what their plans are, what they're not. So it just makes everybody doubt everything that he says. Somebody else talk. I'm getting worked up.
Well, there was more said. Another thing that was said was, we've now had 2 games that I feel I speak to something universal. Okay? As well as it's telling very personal story for these characters. With 1 game, there's no pattern of what a franchise is. With 2 games, now there's starting to be a pattern. Now I feel like there are some structural and thematic themes you'd have to stick to if you're making a 3rd game. The Last of Us, the animated series. That's what that sounds like. They're making a they're making a franchise. We're gonna get cups, little figurines. Hell, Luke has a figurine
Into the
right behind him.
Abbeyverse.
Yeah, into the Abbeyverse. There's all the different Abbeys. One of them's animated. One of them's got like.
One of them's a nun.
Yeah, one of
One's
them's a
got
nun. That'd be
tentacles.
good. There's a robot Abby from
Ooh.
it's a computer virus that makes the robot zombies. Why isn't that a game? Where you're just, oh, it's a world taken over by robots, but robots could still get sick with computer viruses, and you gotta go cure the virus. Just make, I honestly, I'd like Naughty Dog to make something new. I think they can. I'd like them to make like a medieval, like heavily story-driven game like that. Except now that they have all those crazy slashing mechanics working.
I said this before. All I want is an Anne Bonny game by Naughty Dog. Like on the original female pirate sailing the 7 seas. I think they could do such a good job. It's right up their alley with the Anne Bonny character. You know, they love that type of thing. And then also their tech would be crazy, plus an incredibly narrative pirate game.
I dig
Give
that.
it to me. Like,
Yeah, I like pirates.
I need it.
I mean, they said after we finish one of our big titles, we take a long time to explore different ideas, whether it's going to be The Last of Us 3, whether it's something new, or whether there's an old franchise we want to go back to. So it's possible. He's making it sound like they haven't decided, but
They
the
probably
Druckmann lies,
decided.
so yeah.
I mean, what you have to remember is whenever there's a game that's being produced, usually it's in pre-production for a year or 2 before, because game directors have to know exactly what the game's going to be before you have any systems in place. Like if you watch Raising Kratos with Cory Barlog and the exploration of the development of God of War from 2018, he said that he had to have an idea, like he had to see the game in his mind's eye back in 2013, before they had anything working, in order for it to be produced properly. And that's what it takes to be a good game developer and directors. You have to have that image. You have to know where you're going. For something like this, I mean, the only way you get there with a new IP is a year or two of pre-production, of carefully piecing things together, thinking through systems, how this works, how this doesn't. I mean, even then, sometimes it doesn't work. Like, same thing, Sony Santa Monica, they had that that game they were working on, the futuristic shooter that was going to come out before God of War, that they canceled during production because it just wasn't working.
What do you guys want? Like, if you had to pick what you want Naughty Dog to do next, what would you have them do? Would it be the pirate game?
Yeah, if I had to decide what I would have Naughty Dog do, I would say a game about Anne Bonny going through piracy, a very narrative pirate game. I don't know how you balance that out with how they tend to do things with big set pieces and things, because most people would want to sail ships, and that would imply a big open world or open map, and that's not usually their thing. But I have to think there's a way for them to balance that with storytelling. So I think they could figure it out. But I think that would be so cool, and I think it would sell ridiculously well.
I personally, the action platformers have somewhat fallen out, much like Crash Bandicoot or Jak and Daxter. I would like a semi-open world, pretty linear action platformer. However, hyper-realistic and like incredibly story-driven. There is no game like that in existence. If you like,
What do you mean hyper-realistic platformer?
I mean, like, you have your cartoony characters, and they are shaded, they look beautiful. It's like dark and gritty. It's raining all the time. You have nice water effects. And if you like, it's incredibly gore. Like, if you get like hit by something, if you fall off the map, like you can see your character drown, like realistically. If he gets hit by like a big cartoony hammer, he explodes into a bunch of blood and pulp. Like, if someone like throws a rock at him, it like dents your forehead and you're like dizzy for a little bit, and like your character can vomit, your character can pee, your character like
Mortal Kombat crossed with like
Banjo-Kazooie. Yeah, like I want it to be I want it to be like a fun collectathon, but like they take the story incredibly seriously, even though the characters are all cartoony. And there's like one part
this
where,
is but it's all played very seriously. It's not like
it's all played
it's
really
not
like
funny.
There's like a cartoon zebra holding its stomach with its intestines going out, going, and then you have to, like, your character's crying and he's like a cartoon mouse or something, and he's like holding a gun over his head, and it's like press right trigger to shoot, and then you do it and there's just like confetti and then it dies.
I think only your mind could have come up with that.
I will make that. I'll make it in Unity, so it'll be. But
yeah,
I'll
put
make
that together.
Game. I'll make a gray
I'll
box
do a
for that
critique.
game.
Yes.
It might take some time to
Play it on the
animate, but
channel.
I'll at least get like a demo done for it, so everyone can see my vision.
my vision.
Beautiful.
We'll take it to some publishers.
Nice.
What would you like, Cammy?
After that, I don't know. After that, I would definitely want something new. I don't want The Last of Us Part 3. I mean, I never want The Last of Us Part 3. And I don't like. Okay, they're not going to return to Crash because Activision basically has that under wraps now. Jak and Daxter, I kind of doubt it. It seems like that's something that, like, if they were going to return to, I would have thought they would have returned to it by now. And Uncharted, whether they do another Lost Legacy thing, I don't know, but I want something new.
I mean, that was the whole thing that came out about Sony Bend after they finished Days Gone, was that they got sacked with working on an unannounced Uncharted game. So they're apparently working on something with the Uncharted IP. I don't know what, but they're bringing in other studios to work on it as well. So we'll just have to see what that looks like. Realistically, I think that they should put both of these franchises on ice. I've said it before, I'll say it again. I think going back to Jak and Daxter would be a mistake. I think it would probably sell maybe 5 to 8 million copies, which is very, very good. But compared to the success of The Last of Us and Uncharted, that's just not where Naughty Dog needs to be, and they could do a lot more if they were tied up for 5 years developing some new IP that would become Game of the Year again, which I think is more of what Sony's concern is. So I think Sony would give Jak and Daxter to a different studio, or would have Naughty Dog form like a child studio or a sister studio and have them work on it while the actual Naughty Dog team works on something else, but they could still put the Naughty Dog logo on it. I just think it doesn't make sense to put that much focus on Jak and Daxter. So I agree. I think they need to look into a new IP, and I think that's where they're going to go and what they're going to do. But I mean, it's got to be tough. It is a big decision to pursue a new IP after a decade of success based around 2 IPs that are somewhat similar, you know, third-person action adventure games, very narrative and linear. Who knows if they shift that or if they keep with that structure? We'll just have to see. But it doesn't sound like they know either.
The important thing is that everyone donates $20 to the Ronald and the Pool of Satan video game project. That's going to be the name of it. It's going to be action platformer, hyper-realistic, story-driven game about Ronald the Duck. He's a warrior from the clan of Quackington, and he must go on an epic quest to behead the evil king who is enslaving his people. And he's gonna have like friends along the way, a lot of death, a lot of twists and turns. It's gonna have like some cave like maneuvering, like fun lighting effects that you have to do. Like you could shoot a fireball and that like guides your path as you're walking around like a cavern. Also, of course, action platformer. You'll be able to jump around a whole lot, and hyper-realistic gore mechanics where you can explode people and melt them into ash, and screaming. So much screaming. Anyways, thanks for watching, everybody.
Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.